Hi, Dave Culmer with Veterans News, Segment 11. Today we're going to talk about service officers with my colleague Rick Seaman. He has some questions on this 11th segment of Veterans News. Hi, Rick.
Hello, Dave.
How are you?
I'm good. As
Let me touch you.
Always good to see you.
Same here, always.
Yeah, service officers. Well, you know, the reason I wanted to sit in with you, Dave, is, I've been a veteran for, well, let's see, I guess 40 years now.
Yeah, like they say, lo these many years.
Yes. And service officers, to me, have always been kind of a mystery. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe we could, dice this out and maybe, open up the magic box and with your great knowledge. And, for those of you that watch Dave on his show, Veterans News, Dave doesn't talk a lot about where he's been, but Dave, you were a Marine for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And you worked for the VA for
Correct.
22 years.
Correct.
And you were
a Veterans Benefits Counselor was our title then.
So when you're working for the VA, mm-hmm. as you were, mm-hmm. you weren't really a service advocate or service officer. You're the guy that answers the phone when a vet calls.
Right. We rotated between the telephone and interviewing floor.
Right.
And the third rotation was a processing unit. But the two main units were the telephone room, 30 days at a time, and the interviewing floor, which was also 30 days at a time.
Okay.
And so we were there to file claims for veterans and to appeal claims for veterans who were previously denied.
Well, when you were there, you weren't the middleman, you were the man.
Correct. Veterans Benefits Counselor. And they
Veterans Benefits Counselor,
and
yes.
they're different from service officers. It's a very good point, Rick. It's a very good point.
Right. So that tells me, okay, so the service officer is really kind of like my rep.
Exactly.
And he's going to get me to you.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
He's your advocate.
My advocate.
Right.
And they come in different flavors.
Yes.
Different brand names, right?
Right. Exactly. The DAV, of course, that's the Disabled American Veterans.
Right.
The VFW.
Right.
The Veteran of Foreign Wars. The Jewish War Veterans have one.
Right.
The American Legion has one. And there are a host.
VVA.
Yes. A host of
IAVA.
Right.
Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the ones that come from the veterans organization.
That is correct. It's good to distinguish that they're employed by veterans service organizations, not the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
It's a big distinction.
Big distinction.
Good point.
And who pays them?
They're paid by the organization that they work for. All of the service organizations are non-profit organizations.
Right.
And so they're paid by those various service organizations for whom they work.
And that money comes from donations?
Public donations.
Membership dues?
Membership dues is a great one.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not costing the taxpayer a nickel.
Doesn't cost the taxpayer a nickel.
For a service officer from a veterans organization.
Right. Before we get into the specifics of what they do, Rick, I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. Stick around to Veterans News. Hi, and welcome back to Veterans News and Service Officers. Rick, before we went to break, I didn't mention that there is another segment of service officers. Most counties around the country have a county Department of Veterans Affairs, and they in turn employ people as service officers.
The county service officers have the same training and knowledge and know-how of a service officer from a veterans organization? Are they equal in talent?
Well, certainly equal, yes, because they must have the qualifications in order to be called a service officer.
That was another one of my questions is, and I'm sure a lot of people have this same question, any service officer, be it county or veterans organization, they have to train and they have to be certified, right?
Absolutely, yes.
How does that work?
Yes, different ways, but ultimately there is testing. They take an examination. In my case, my test went to Washington, D.C., and it was certified by the General Counsel in Washington, D.C., that certified the test after 6 months and graded the test and came back with my certification. So if that is done in other areas, then the same thing will prevail. Let's take the regular service organizations. There is a means with which they must qualify that veterans who bear the title as service officer qualify for that position. And certainly the county would seemingly be just as stringent or possibly even more.
Here's another good question then. To the best of your knowledge, Dave, having been, involved with this for so many years, are most service officers actually veterans?
Most are, yes.
And that
Yes.
would be because they must have come from somewhere prior, either out of the VA or, I mean, how do you explain
Well,
that?
you can have let's take the DAV. A veteran must have a service-connected disability in order to be disabled.
Right.
And he can then go off the street, essentially, into the disabled American veterans and say, I would like to be a service officer. He would begin the process of training and all of the training that is provided until he reaches a point that he is competent to provide the services that veteran service officers provide through the DAV.
Would you find that more to be true with veterans organizations, that their service officers are veterans, as opposed to when you get into the county service officers, where could they come from?
How about if we take a break and we answer the question when we come back?
I can't wait.
Okay. We'll be right back. And during our break, we're going to have Joanne, who heads our research department, look up the qualifications for county service officers. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And in that short period of time, our research department was able to come up with the information we requested, which was Wisconsin, California, and several other states do in fact require that an applicant be a veteran for the position of county service officer.
Okay. Good job research, huh?
Great department.
You didn't give much time.
No, I know. They're good.
But so that's good. So I guess bottom line would still be, good question, ask your service officer, are you a veteran?
It's a great question because it'll also generate other answers from that one question.
Exactly.
Voluntary answers from the service officer, which will give you a kind of a feel
Sure.
for the kind of person he is.
Right.
One experience along the same lines, when I was a Veterans Benefits Counselor in the early 1970s with the Department of Veterans Affairs, there was a guy that was a kind of a different kind of guy. He always struck me as just being a little different. I won't go into details of how different. He was a great guy. And I asked him one day, I said, either what branch of service were you in, or were you in the military? And he says, no, Dave, he says, I wasn't in the military. And that accounted to me all the differences that I happened to notice, idiosyncrasies. So for the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, they don't necessarily have to be a veteran.
So, Dave, if I'm on active duty say I got, I don't know, 6 months, 3 months to go. Is there anything the active duty soldier can do, or does he get any kind of, I don't want to use the word counseling, but any kind of briefing or information that tells him what to expect when he gets out and how to approach the VA about benefits and educational? And do they give the soldiers anything like that today?
The military does provide training and education and information in becoming a veteran upon leaving the service. Whether it's global and every base gets it or not, I'm rather doubtful. But it is provided at some military bases. And it informs them of the rights and the procedures to filing claims, in addition to a host of other information when a veteran is being separated from active duty.
Yeah, which is good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Of course it's good stuff, right. But whether it's global is the issue.
Right.
And I'm kind of thinking it may not be necessarily global.
Right. Are the soldiers nearing the end of their term? Are they forced to do that? Are they mandated to do that militarily, or do they do it voluntarily?
Well, Rick, we're going to go to break. And I'm going to give you the answer as to whether they're required to take those classes or not.
Good
We'll
deal.
be right back. Stick around.
All right.
Veterans News.
Rolling.
Hi, and welcome back to Veterans News. Rick, the question you posed was whether the military mandates people being separated from active duty to take the classes that would inform them of a host of benefits, including Veterans Affairs benefits.
Yes.
There is a mandate to do that. But let me tell you what happened when I was leaving the service. A lot of guys would duck the lectures they're scheduled to do upon being separated from active duty. For instance, Jones would tell Smitty, sign the roster for me, and it'll appear as though I was there. So he misses that class.
Because he's got something more interesting to do.
He has something more interesting to do.
Sure.
Exactly. So he feels like he doesn't need it.
Okay.
And this may be the guy that I've seen a multitude of times who comes to my office when I explain benefits to him. He says, nobody ever told me about my benefits.
Right.
Nobody ever explained about these benefits, some of which time has eroded.
Yes.
And they're no longer applied.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, going back to when I was in the service, one of the things the sergeant major used to always say was to read the bulletin board twice a day. Now, here's an example where the bulletin board, the second posting on the bulletin board, has steak, T-bone steaks in the mess hall for the evening meal. But not having read the bulletin board, Smitty goes to the slop shoot. He goes to the enlisted club, and he buys a hamburger, and he stays there with a couple of beers, and he comes back to the barracks, and everybody's picking the steak out of their teeth, and Smitty is wondering what happened. And they say, oh, we had great big T-bone steaks at the mess hall. I had 2. And Smitty didn't know because he didn't read the bulletin board. Had he read it, he would have seen T-bone steaks on the menu tonight.
It sounds so familiar.
Is that familiar to you?
I think I might have been Smitty a few times myself.
Yes, I think I was Smitty too. I think there are a lot of Smitties out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Benefits is something that you've got to look for and dig out. The computer is a great source of information. And there is always the parking lot scuttlebutt, the water fountain scuttlebutt. The sea lawyers have information on VA benefits, but nobody has it all.
Right.
And the thing to do is get the information from the horse's mouth.
I couldn't agree more.
The Veterans Administration always tells veterans upon filing a claim they should have a service officer to get a service officer, a service representative.
So the VA really prefers that.
Indeed, they do.
It's okay.
Absolutely,
Right.
they do.
I think that's important to everybody should know that.
Right.
That by getting a service officer, it's not like you're going out and getting a hired gun or something.
Exactly.
The VA encourages
They do
you
that.
to get a service officer.
Right.
Great.
With that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Veterans News. Well, Rick, we're going to continue this on segment 12 of Veterans News with more information that I'm sure everybody will want to know about.
I'll be there.
Very good. Dave Culmer, Veterans News, out.